let's talk about you both coming back pretty quickly after your Oscar-nominated work in Worst Person in the World. What was this story? Was this something y'all had been thinking about for a while, or was this something that came to be in between that film coming out and now?
Well, first let me say thank you all for coming tonight. We flew 24 hours and now we're here, so if we seem a little bit tired or weird, please forgive us. But we're very excited to be here, so thanks for coming. Yes, where did this begin, Eskil? It's messy as always.
I'd like to say thank you to say that we were quick, because we always feel we are very slow in following up our films.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So if that's the impression, we're very happy, because we're very slow writers. and when we start, it's usually, with a very vague idea, and we're not very professional about it. We just find some time to hang out and be in my office and play music and talk and imagine possible films. And I think, but one of the things we had from the beginning was the idea of making something about sisters and about growing up in a family and having those kind of, you have the same parents, but you have a different childhood because of the age difference, or because your personality brings out something different from your parents than your sibling does. And so that was beginning, and also Joachim and I really wanted to work with Renate Reinsve again from Worst Person, and so obviously she was one of the sisters from the get-go.
What was it, Joachim, if I can ask you, was specific about the sister aspect that you wanted to explore, and then how much of that was driven also by the parental aspect? Because it is sisters, but it's how they relate to their parents. It's not just sisters together.
No, absolutely, and I think we couldn't get the story off the ground until the father arrived. At the beginning, he was absent. We were discussing, as Eskil was just speaking about, the sort of difference between siblings. But when the dad came into it, and we realized it could be about reconciliation and forgiveness, and all that stuff that you don't know how to talk about in a family, to try to trace that cinematically, to try to find the hole in the middle and draw it, and hope that there's a space for interpretation. And I don't know, I think we're also in the middle of life. So we both have kids now, we have parents that are still around. There's this sense that you, at least, I think we're realizing that, life isn't eternal. There are limits. So that really triggered it, the parent-child dynamic.
One thing I think is interesting is you both are filmmakers, separate as well as collaborators together, but also you have a friendship that's decades deep, but you're still coming up with new stories. Eskil, I'd be curious for you to tell me something that you learned about him as a collaborator through this project that you hadn't previous projects, if there was anything new.
We know each other really, really, really well. Because, like you said, we've been writing films together since the 90s, short films. And before that, we were friends. But we change, and a new thing in this, and this is a bit embarrassing, new thing in this writing process was that we cried more. And I think that's also something that happens with us, maybe just growing older or becoming parents. But there were moments where Joachim teared up a lot, and that's a new thing that we're doing more now, and being.
I love that you share that.
Yeah.
No, it's true. No, but I don't know. It's also an emotion. Sure, no, but it's also an emotional film. It's about tricky stuff. It's about.
They saw it. They know.
Yeah. No, to make it too, and I think what's very important is that yes, we come up with a story and a script and some suggestion of characters, but then the actors come into it, and they really take charge of the characters and bring stuff from their life, and it becomes a real collaborative process. And I think that so the film started triggering people sharing stuff of personal nature, and I think that gave it a certain emotional aspect.
Yeah, it is very that. It is very that. I saw it when it premiered at Cannes Film Festival. It was crazy because it was like I can't go outside and talk to people now. Like, I need to go home and talk to my dad or something. But one thing nobody can deny after watching it is that Renate is just one of the greatest actresses that's probably ever graced screen. She's just so incredible in this. And that's crazy to think about because it's really a trio of them that you put together in this. So you already said how you want to work with her again after the worst person in the world. Talk about putting these other two incredible characters on both sides of her, one being the sister and then other being the character played by Elle. And Inga, it's just, yeah, how did you find that? Because they have to match what she does.
I'm so happy you asked me that question because tonight we actually with us have the Norwegian casting director, Ingrid. Would you please stand up? And we worked together for many, many years. And the wonderful thing about Ingrid is that she really goes deep. And in a small country like Norway, when you want to find a younger sister for Renate Reinsve, it's not so easy. There are 5 million people. How do we match Renate? And it was a long journey. And Ingvild created this safe space for so many actors that came in. And finally, we were fortunate to find Inga Ibsdotter Lillås, who plays Agnes. And we really adore her. And she's a real find. But she has that kind of, she was written a bit differently. We thought on the page first that Agnes would be avoiding conflict and trying to create balance by being jovial and jolly and avoiding. But then when we met Inga, we realized her groundedness and her earnestness, the sort of truth in her, was what made that character really deep and interesting. So then Eskil and I changed the script a little bit here and there. And so it's a real collaboration of a lot of people. And Elle, I've been a fan of hers for I don't know, for decades. It's not ironic, she's so young, yet we've seen her grow up in movies. And she is fantastically skilled as an actor. And you see it in the film how she can both be a star and at the same time also be really vulnerable and an everyday person. And she has that great range.
This is a bit of a meta one, but it's definitely one that I thought about when I saw the film. How much of the portion of the film about the making of the movie was informed by your experience going through awards season and the sort of like getting shot out of the cannon aspect that you all went through? I'm sorry, it feels very much like, yeah, we just went through this thing and we gotta write something about it because it's insane. Am I wrong? Come on.
Not consciously. I think the beginning of the writing process of this was to kind of remove everything of those kind of meta thoughts about award season and what people expect of the worst person, and try to just empty the room of all that. But maybe it snuck in unconsciously. But in the beginning, we were kind of resisting the meta element, and then when we got the idea of the ending of the last shot, the last one there in the film, just felt like that's obvious. That's where the film is heading. This is where all the layers of all the stories come together, thematically, psychologically, and aesthetically, and yeah, it has to be like that, But we were kind of resisting making a movie about the movie.
You have a junket and a film festival in it. I'm not trying to say,
No, of course,
right.
when we opened that door, there were a lot of stuff.
Sure, and absolutely you're right. And we went to Deauville, the French festival you see, and with the worst person. So sure, no, absolutely. And also, I come from a film family background. My grandfather was a filmmaker, my parents. I grew up in this environment, and we thought more than just having fun with it. It's also an interesting thing to look at the paradox of Gustav Borg, this character who is so clumsy and inarticulate in his emotional language with people, yet it turns out he's a pretty good director and he can kind of express something there. And I think that's what we all do. We yearn for alternative languages or other ways of being with each other, and artists do that in a very specific way. So we thought that more than just talking about how it is to make movies, we were interested in how could that open up a different layer of communication between this family.
Yeah. obviously, Stellan is an incredible actor. We've been seeing that as long as he's been somebody on our streets. But it's crazy. I think he goes to a place we've never seen him go before on screen in this one. Also, I had to look it up. I was like, that's not the language that I thought he spoke. And then I was like, oh no, he's fluent in that one too. So how did Stellan get involved with this project? And then also, I just think it's incredible to think of him being talented multilingually. Like, that's just too much. Like, because I can barely speak a second language. The idea of him having to like emote in that, like, that's a different trick, and he does it like it is his native tongue, you know?
It's true. But he's Swedish and Norwegian is very close. So that's how it works in this family and in this story. Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish, almost the same language. No, Stellan is marvelous. The more we understood that Gustav Borg was a difficult, tricky character and a bit of an asshole, the more we needed Stellan Skarsgård, who's such a lovely man, to create some dynamic. So we decided really early while writing that we had to have him.
Yeah, again, we resisted it because we didn't know him. We just admired his work, but we didn't know him. We didn't know if he was interested in going back to Scandinavia doing a film with us, because he was doing the Marvel stuff, the Star Wars stuff. You know, he was doing fine without us. So it was we were very anxious when Joachim approached him talking about the project. Would he accept? Because we had no alternative.
Wow, I'm glad he accepted. Eskil, I want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that, in a way, you're handing this off. And I don't even know how much time you spent on set when you're filming and so on and so forth. But there's definitely going to be moments where there's aspects of the screenplay that are getting shifted in the direction. What was something that you were surprised by when you finally saw the film, that you were like, obviously it's in the screenplay, but you just never imagined how it would be visually represented?
Well, luckily Joachim involves me in the process, so I'm not surprised by a finished film. You know, that would be a shock. Even a good film or a great film or whatever, it would just be. I'm glad I'm witnessing all the shifts that happen, because making a film is a very alive process where a lot of people contribute. So luckily I know who's getting cast, and I can discuss that with Joachim if I have opinions, and I'm quite involved in the editing, just watching what Joachim and the editor, Louis Coutier, does, and they show me versions of what they're doing, and so I can like get used to what's happening. There's so many things that shift when you are making a film, and I think Joachim was talking about one of the things that really surprised me was what some of the cast did, you know. And Inga is a great example of that, because you could write a character like Nora, Renate's character, who has that like showy moment of stage fright, and then very contrasting scenes of being almost depressed or very emotional, and then Gustav Borg is this larger-than-life character, or at least uses that to avoid being intimate and real, and that's also, you know, you can see that would be interesting for people to watch. And then you have Inga's character, and she's very subtle, you know, and she's very, I identify with her a lot, the thing that you want everyone to be happy and trying to facilitate that, but she's not, on page she wasn't that interesting, or I was afraid she wouldn't come through. And then you see what Inga does, that you just witness, and you go like, wow, that's the heart of the film, you know, that's just something that transcends what we wrote.
I love it. I'm so glad you brought up the opening scene, because this, for folks that don't know, this is the very first public release Q&A that these gentlemen have done for the film, so congratulations to you. Y'all were first, the other ones, they get to meet people, y'all were first. One thing I wanted to ask you is about the opening, because when I saw it, the thing I thought was, this is a moment of a very talented person having a moment of supreme insecurity and like panicking. And this was like my audience interpretation of that moment when she's like, I can't go out on stage because, again, people who are raised in with men like that usually have a crisis of conscience. And then I had lunch with these gentlemen, and they were like, no, silly American, that's not what we wrote. So, it's the truth, they did. It was very nice about it, because they're Norwegian, but they definitely corrected me. But I would love for you to tell this audience what you were writing, because I bet there's people that thought what I thought, right? Don't leave me hanging. Some of y'all, nobody thought that she was insecure. Man,
Did we disagree?
Did we disagree? A little bit, but anyway, talk about that opening scene and what you thought she was doing.
I think you're onto something. I think it's a character scene, and it's also a thematic scene. And we've learned from American movies that when you establish something, or you do exposition, you better make it interesting and entertaining. That's a good American tradition. So we're trying that. So you're right. She has this push-pull, this kind of double relationship to performance. She desperately wants to be seen. She wants to put herself in a position of the gaze of everyone, which is a mad thing to be an actor like that. Think about it. You know, it's, as she says in the film, it's against the primal instincts of humans to be stared at like that. And, you know, so she's drawn to that, and at the same time, she wants to avoid it on a deeper level. It's almost self-destructive. And I find that fascinating, and I think some creative people are like that. And I think it's also a metaphor for all creative work, where you are, like Eskil and I sit here now, and there's a poster, and everyone, you know, the film's out in the theaters, but we have many, many moments, and me as the director as well, along the way where I think, oh, I messed it up, it's gonna be terrible, you know, you have all this doubt. And at the end of the day, it's all just put together with gaffer tape, and you see the right side of the dress and it works, and the other side it doesn't. And this is how it is. It's not, anyone that creates something like that, like a theater play or a movie, it's barely there, you know. It's really, and that's also the excitement of it.
And I also think it's a kind of character we often come back to, a character who is almost a little bit arrogant, and I think Renate's character sometimes looks down on her sister for safe choices and not like living at risk as she does, but you know, choosing the family life and not being ambitious. And so she has that arrogance and very, very high standards, and at the same time she feels and decides that she doesn't live up to those standards herself. You know, it's that kind of, you place yourself above people, and then you feel actually you're below them. You know, you're worse than them. So you have that dynamic, and I think that's what you maybe see at play in that scene.
Sorry, yeah. I don't know what happened. You started talking, I'm like, I'm gonna just die, just like she did. Excuse me, we're good. My last question, excuse me. I want to talk about your favorite lines from the screenplay, because I feel it has so many bars throughout it. But if you could both tell me what your favorite lines were from it, since I think this is one that people are going to be talking about for a while.
The lines of dialogue.
Yeah, your favorite line, favorite dialogue, favorite line read, like what the actor did.
I'm going to choose one that I didn't write. Again, you know, sometimes the actors come up with something great, and sometimes something extremely simple becomes great. For instance, the scene with the two sisters, when she has made Renate's character read the script, and they have this intimate moment, and when the written scene ends, they hug, and that was Inga adding, saying, "I love you," and Renate didn't know she was going to say that, and answers in a very natural way, making a small mistake, you know, "I love you, me too, I love you too," you know, and I would never dare to write something like that, you know, but when it's delivered like that, it's just perfect.
Such a very nice Norwegian answer. That's great. Thank you.
Something that's written when Gustav Borg looks at the piano teacher and says, "This is everything you need." And then I learn in the relation to the mother, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think that's Eskil's line.
By the way, I'm so glad you pointed that out. He has better line reads than drag queens. He is so sassy, and I love how sassy he is in this movie. So thank you so much for writing him that way. I want to thank you all again for watching. Please tell everyone, since you're one of the first audiences to see it, thank you for watching.